Hello, let us resume our discussion on the story of Pentheus, Bacchus and Aquatis. In my last lecture, I have completed the particular section where Aquatis was detailing why he has become the worshipper of Bacchus. Now, the effect of Aquatis' story to Pentheus. What Pentheus answers. So, let us read the text again. Then spoke Pentheus. We have listened to a long and rambling tale, in order that delay might serve to calm our anger. So, the reflections are quite different. What Aquatis did at this moment, he was trying to influence Pentheus so that Pentheus may uh, give permission to all his people to worship Bacchus. But what happened to him? Pentheus, he was not to be influenced any further. Pentheus said, we have listened to a long and rambling tale. So the tale had been recited, the tale had been retold, in order that delay might serve to calm our anger. So I don't want to become my anger. Slaves, remove this man now with all speed. Rack his frame with your worst torments. Your frame means body. So just go there and torment his body and consign him to the shades of the Styx. So Styx is the river. So ultimately they have been pointed there. Immediately the Lydian Aquatis was dragged away and shut up in a stout prison chamber. So now you can find there is a particular reference that how Aquatis was tortured just after the, say, decree, just after the words of Pentheus. But the story goes that while the cruel instruments, the fire, the sword, were being got ready to kill him, that is Aquatis, as the king had ordered, the doors flew open of their own accord, and though no one loosed them, the fetters fell from his arms. So ultimately this is the mythological tale, and it has been pointed out that in spite of the cruel order, in spite of the cruelty that Pentheus showed in the face of Aquatis here, ultimately everything was being saved, and saved by Liber himself. That was the power of Liber, that was the power of Pentheus. So here it says, therefore, but the story goes that while the cruel instruments, the fire, the sword, were being got ready to kill him, as the king had ordered, the doors flew open of their own accord, okay, automatically, and of their own accord, though no one loosed them, the fetters fell from his arms. So he was not to be imprisoned, he was not to be tortured any further. Still, the son of Achaean persisted in his folly. He no longer commanded others to go. So here you will find the references have been given to Pentheus. He was the folly-fallen man. He no longer commanded others to go there, but went himself to Cytharion. What is Cytharion? Cytharion is a particular place, a mountain actually. Okay, it was chosen for the sacred rites, for the Bacchanal. That means the festival, okay, where each and every personality, they are completely being associated with a kind of frenzy, and in that frenzied state they actually perform the ritualistic rites and rituals and other forms. So that's why here you will find that Pentheus no longer commanded others to go there, but went himself to Cytharion. It was the mountain chosen for the sacred rites, where the songs and shrill cries of the worshipper filled the air, because it was the Bacchanalian festival that was going on. As a spirited horse on the battlefield whinnies, okay, the sound, eager for the fray, when the trumpeter sounds the charge on his bell instrument. So you can find a kind of a similarity is being pointed out. Just like a spirited horse, what on the battlefield whinnies, eager for the fray, when the trumpeter sounds the charge on his brazen instrument. So like that, Pentheus was roused by the long-drawn howlings, which set the very air a-quiver. And when he heard the shouting that is coming from the worshippers of Bacchus, his anger blazed up hotly once more. And he was running to some extent. Halfway up the mountain is a stretch of level ground. So in the mountain you can find this kind of a valley-like place. Okay? It's a stretch of level ground hemmed in by forests. It was surrounded by the forests. But itself, that particular place, was bare of tree. So that it can be clearly visible, it can be clearly seen from every side. Because it was a bare place, obviously, bare of trees. So here, Pentheus looked upon the mysteries with uninitiated eyes. So Pentheus looked at it. What is happening there? The persons were completely in a frenzied condition, okay? But the first to see him, he was watching them, okay, from a distance. And the people were in a frenzied state. The first to see him, the first to make a frenzied rush. So the question certainly arises that why did the people who are engaged in the Bacchanalian festival, they made such a kind of a frenzied rush? The first to hurl her thyrsus and wound him. So it's a kind of a spear-like instrument or weapon. So they were throwing the thyrsus and wound him was his own mother. So the problem is, how can it be possible that a mother cannot recognize her own son? So was it a kind of a mazy situation that had been created? Was it a kind of a, say, just you can identify that it is actually being taught by or it was decreed by Tiresias first, and now you can identify that Pentheus couldn't be recognized by his own mother. What was the reason? Was it a kind of a transformation that was actually happening to Pentheus? Because here you will find that he was being pointed out by others as like a boar. So was it a kind of a transformation that was actually taking place? Or rather, people were so much frenzied, okay, in so much frenzy. So ultimately, they didn't have the capability at the time to identify, to recognize Pentheus in its own form. But this is hinted. And as I have already said, as I mentioned in my previous lectures, that all the stories that actually cover this particular textbook, that is, Metamorphoses by Ovid, you will find that different stories have to be related. Different stories have to be linked with a particular idea. And that sheer idea is transformation. Metamorphosis, as you can see. So it might be possible that it was the curse that have been given or provided by Bacchus on Pentheus that made Pentheus a boar, and no one could identify, no one could recognize Pentheus as the king. Rather, they found him as like a boar. So here it has been pointed out in terms of this particular description. So let us read them. So the first to see him, the first to make a frenzied rush, the first to hurl her thyrsus and wound him was his own mother. As she did so, she cried, "Sisters, come, both of you, come and help. That huge boar roaming in our preserves. That boar, I say, must be the victim of my spear." The whole frenzied throng rushed madly upon him, all gathering to pursue the panic-stricken king. For each and every one, they were just rushing towards him to kill. For now, he was indeed panic-stricken. Okay? Now he spoke less violently. He cursed himself and confessed himself at fault. Wounded at this moment as he was, still he called out, "Help me, Aunt Ottone. Let the ghost of your Actaeon move you to pity me." It's another story, you see. If you Google it, then you will find the story of Actaeon, when he has been converted into a stag, and when all the hounds are actually pursuing Actaeon, and tore him into pieces. That was the story of Actaeon, the hunter. So help me, Aunt Autonomy. Let the ghost of your Actaeon move you to pity me. But the name of Actaeon meant nothing to her. Why? Because it was beyond the auditory level. As Pentheus was transformed into a boar, so it was not possible to use the human voice. But the name of Actaeon meant nothing to her. Even as he prayed for mercy, she tore off his right arm, while Ino seized the other and wrenched it away. With no arms left to stretch towards his mother, the hapless man showed her instead the grasping wounds where his limbs have been torn out, and cried, "Look, mother!" At that sight, Agave uttered a wild shriek, tossed her head till her hair streamed out or streamed to the air, then tore his head from the shoulders. So that is the Bacchanalian form. If you go with the Bacchanal festivals and the ritualistic performances, the frenzied states, then you will find that what it actually indicates. Such a desperation, such a kind of sheer madness they were in. And Pentheus, who was the odd figure out, he was cursed. Nobody could recognize him. And the particular kind of a curse was befell on Pentheus. So that had been discussed, described in horrid details. Clutching it in blood-stained fingers, she called, "See, my friends, this victory, my own achievement." And swiftly, as the wind strips a tall tree of its autumn leaves, when a touch of frost has left them only just clinging to the branches, so swiftly did those terrible hands tear the king's limbs apart. So that actually happened to King Pentheus, So that is being described here. The swiftly, as the wind strips a tall tree of its autumn leaves, the leaves have been torn apart. When a touch of frost has left him, or left them only just clinging to the branches. Likewise, swiftly did those terrible hands of the worshippers of Bacchus. They actually tore the king's limbs apart. Taught by such warning, the Theban women thronged to celebrate the new rites and made offerings of incense, worshipping at the holy altars. So ultimately, with this particular story, we can find that Pentheus was no more. Okay? And at the end, we can find, after the death of Pentheus, we find that the Theban women, they thronged to celebrate the new rites, and there was no particular kind of an opposition, no particular kind of a problem in worshipping Bacchus anymore. As you can find here, that the name Pentheus, it is coming from the term Penthos. And Penthos, this name is referred to sorrow or grief caused by the death of loved ones. Is the man of sorrows. So therefore, when you read the story of Pentheus, you will find that the name is actually indicating to the matters of this sorrow or grief. So that was the significant part of this particular tale, and you can find how Liber or Bacchus became more powerful and became celebrated and worshipped by all in the Theban parts. So hope you have liked this particular discussion, and ultimately it will be helpful for your coming examinations altogether. Stay attached. Thank you.